The bass rattled the lake house windows like they were about to blow out. Inside, the whole place smelled like beer and hairspray. Someone had dragged a pair of giant speakers into the living room and hooked them up to a cassette deck that kept chewing through mixtapes. Van Halen, The Cure, Madonna, then back to Van Halen again when somebody hit rewind. Kids in tuxedo jackets and sequin dresses stumbled across the floor, sticky with spilled beer. The crepe paper streamers they'd stolen from the gym hung limp in the heat, drooping across the rafters like jungle vines. Balloons sagged against the ceiling, their strings brushing heads damp with sweat and aqua net. Jessie lingered at the edge of it all, clutching a warm red cup she hadn't touched. She'd come because Aaron had begged her to. Because it was senior year, and you couldn't say no to the last big night. Because if she hadn't, everyone would be talking about how Jessie Carter skipped prom and sat home reading, while the rest of the class made memories. But every minute she spent inside the lake house, she wished harder that she'd just stayed home. Aaron appeared at her side in a flash of sequins and eyeliner, eyes glittering, her corsage already wilting. She leaned close, shouting over the music. "Lighten up, Jess, it's prom night. Last chance before the real world." Jessie forced a smile and tipped her cup to her lips. The warm beer hit her tongue and she almost gagged. She nodded anyway. "Just relax," Aaron grinned. "You're way too tense." Jessie didn't say what she was really thinking, that the whole place felt wrong. The lake stretched endless behind the glass doors, black water swallowing the moon, and every time Jessie caught sight of it, she thought it was waiting. Brett, the quarterback, stood on a chair in the middle of the living room, already shirtless, waving a six-pack like a trophy. "Class of '86, baby," he shouted, voice carrying over the music. "Best damn year this town's ever seen." Everyone roared back, raising their cups. Beer sprayed, glittering in the colored lights someone had strung up around the ceiling. Tommy, Brett's best friend, shoved him off the chair and took his place, flexing exaggeratedly while the girls laughed. "Forget Brett," he crowed. "Who's buying a ticket to the gun show?" He kissed his bicep, nearly knocking over the lamp, and the room howled. Jessie rolled her eyes. Same Tommy as always, loud, hot-headed, desperate for attention. Near the stereo, Danny fiddled with his camcorder, one eye squinting through the viewfinder as he panned across the crowd. "This is gold," he said, grinning. "We're gonna laugh at this forever." Maria, standing stiff beside him, muttered, "If we survive the hangover?" Danny laughed and zoomed in on her face until she shoved him away, cheeks burning. Maria was the kind who always sat front row, always had her homework done. Jessie was surprised she'd even shown up. She looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her every time Brett or Tommy staggered near. By the kitchen, Lila, prom queen herself, held court with a gaggle of admirers, her crown already slipping sideways, her dress hitched high to show off her legs. She tossed her hair and laughed too loud, as though the night itself was hers. Jessie watched her from across the room, thinking Lila looked like a firework, bright, loud, ready to burn out fast. The doorbell rang, muffled under the music. Nobody paid attention. Jessie glanced toward the foyer, but Aaron tugged her arm, spinning her into the crowd. "Dance!" Aaron shouted, dragging her onto the sticky floor. Jessie stumbled, nearly spilling her beer, while Van Halen's guitar screamed from the speakers. The crowd bounced and shouted, tux jackets swinging like flags, heels sinking into beer puddles. Jessie moved half-heartedly, eyes darting toward the glass doors again. The lake pressed dark and endless against the house. And beyond it, the woods loomed, shadows tangled tight. She saw the door first. The front one. It creaked open just enough for a cold draft to snake inside. Nobody else noticed. Not over the music, not with Brett yelling, not with Tommy flexing, not with Lila shrieking laughter. Only Jessie turned her head. And in the doorway, for half a breath, she thought she saw a shadow slip in. Tall, broad, still. Then the door shut. Jessie blinked. The music swallowed everything. Back at the edge of the crowd, Danny's camcorder panned across the room, then paused. The little red light blinked. He zoomed in on the hallway. "Hey," he said to nobody in particular. "Who was that?" Nobody answered. Because nobody had seen. Except Jessie. And by the time she looked back, the hallway was empty. The party churned on, louder and messier, until the air inside the lake house felt too thick to breathe. Jessie pressed through the sweaty crowd, sequins scratching against her arms, and slipped out the sliding glass door onto the back deck. The night hit her like a slap. Sharp, cool, alive with the sound of crickets and distant frogs. The bass still thudded inside, rattling the glass, but out here the lake seemed louder. Black water lapped at the dock, ripples catching the moonlight. Beyond the tree line, shadows twisted together, too still to be just branches. Jessie gripped the railing and told herself to relax. It was just a party, just kids too drunk to notice how stupid they looked. Just her own nerves making her jump at shadows. The boards creaked behind her. Jessie spun. Erin leaned against the doorframe, her hair wild, her mascara smudged. "There you are," she said, voice hoarse from shouting over music. "I thought you'd bailed." Jessie let out a shaky breath. "Just needed air." "Air is overrated," Erin smirked, stepping out with a bottle of wine cooler stolen from somebody's trunk. "Sugar and bubbles fix everything." She raised it in a toast, then gulped half of it. Jessie shook her head. "You're gonna regret that tomorrow." "Tomorrow doesn't exist." Erin grinned, eyes glittering. "Tonight's all that matters." Something shifted at the edge of the woods. Jessie's smile died. A shape stood between the trees. Tall, broad, unmoving. "Did you—" she started. The bass inside cut off with a shriek of feedback. For a moment, silence slammed down on the house. No music, no laughter. Just the creak of the dock and the hush of the woods. Then a scream split the air. High, sharp, inside. Jessie and Erin bolted for the door. The living room was chaos. Brett shouted for someone to fix the stereo, smacking the cassette deck with his fist. Tommy shoved kids aside like a linebacker. Lila clutched her slipping crown, shrieking at the sudden quiet. Danny stood near the fireplace, camcorder up, red light blinking. "Keep rolling," he muttered, trying to sound tough though his voice wavered. Jessie's eyes darted past them toward the kitchen. Another scream. Maria stood frozen against the fridge, white-faced, pointing with a trembling hand at the pantry door. A dark streak ran across the linoleum from the base of the door, glistening under the overhead light. Blood. Jessie's stomach dropped. Tommy swaggered toward the pantry, puffed up and smirking like he was about to pull off some big joke. "Somebody messing with us," he shouted. "Cut it out." Brett slapped his shoulder. "Open it, dude. Show 'em we're not scared." Tommy grinned, grabbed the knob, and yanked the door wide. Something tumbled out. A body. One of the juniors, Jessie thought his name was Mark or maybe Matt, crumpled onto the floor with a wet slap. His prom tux shirt was soaked crimson, his throat cut wide and ragged. His eyes stared glassy into nothing, mouth frozen in a silent scream. The room erupted. Girls shrieked, boys cursed, cups crashed to the floor, beer splashing in rivers across the tile. Someone bolted for the front door, but the knob slipped under their hands, smeared with blood from trembling fingers. Danny's camcorder swung wildly, recording everything. "Oh my God, oh my God." Maria pressed harder against the fridge, tears streaking her face, shaking her head like she could erase what she'd seen. Jessie couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She stared at the blood pooling across the linoleum, the way it crept toward her shoes. Erin's hand clamped onto her wrist. "We have to go." The back door slammed shut. Jessie whipped around. Through the glass, she saw it. A figure stood on the deck, tall and broad, mask pale in the moonlight. An axe gleamed in its hands, head still dripping with something dark. The figure didn't smash the glass, didn't charge. It only lifted one slow, deliberate finger to the pane, pointed straight at her. The screams inside blurred into noise. Jessie couldn't hear Aaron, couldn't hear Brett yelling, couldn't hear the pounding feet around her. All she heard was the sound of her own blood rushing in her ears. Because the finger never wavered. It was aimed only at her. For a moment, nobody moved. The glass door still rattled from the slam. The figure's finger, pressed flat against the pane, left a foggy oval with every slow, deliberate breath. Then Brett snapped. "It's a prank!" he shouted, his voice cracking high. "One of the juniors screwing with us." Nobody believed him. But nobody wanted to admit it either. Tommy puffed out his chest, swagger heavy, and yanked a fireplace poker from its stand. "I'll handle it," he said, voice loud, masking his nerves. Jessie's throat clenched. "Don't." Too late. Tommy stormed forward, grabbed the handle, and yanked the sliding door wide. Cold night air rushed inside, scattering streamers. The deck was empty. The figure was gone. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. "See? Told you." "Where's Mark? He set this up." "That blood was fake, right?" "It had to be." But Jessie's eyes stayed locked on the pantry floor, where blood still smeared thick and real. The body hadn't moved. That wasn't a prank. Maria gagged, folding against the fridge, hand clamped over her mouth. Danny kept filming, voice shaking as he whispered, "It's real. It's real." Aaron grabbed Jessie's wrist. "We're leaving. Now. I don't care what Brett says." Brett slammed the door shut, this time locking it with a sharp click. His face was pale, his hands trembling, but he forced his voice steady. "Everybody calm down," he barked, chest heaving. "Nobody leaves. We stay together until we figure this out. You scatter, you get picked off. That's how this works." Jessie stared at him. "You think this is a movie?" Brett glared back. "You got a better idea?" No one answered. The silence stretched, broken only by the sound of Maria's sobs. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice. And the stereo roared back to life. Not Madonna, not Van Halen. A warped cassette, screeching distorted synth, shrill and jagged like knives dragged across glass. Balloons shuddered on their strings. Streamers swayed like nooses. Everyone froze. Then the glass door exploded inward. The figure charged. Mask pale, axe gleaming, broad shoulders filling the doorway. Shards of glass rained across the carpet. Tommy swung the poker in a desperate arc. The axe split it in two like a twig. The backswing caught Tommy in the chest with a crunch that silenced the room. He staggered, gasped, then collapsed across the dance floor, blood gushing in hot rivers across the sticky boards. Screams tore loose all at once. The party shattered. Kids shoved, tripped, scrambled. Cups flew, beer splashing across dresses and tuxedos. A chair slammed against the wall as someone hurled it in panic. Danny's camcorder dropped, skidding across the floor, lens pointed upward, red light blinking as it captured every scream, every blurred streak of panic. Jessie pulled Aaron toward the hallway. "Move!" They stumbled past the stereo, the warped music screeching behind them. Brett shouted orders nobody heard, voice swallowed in chaos. Lila shrieked, bolting for the stairs, her crown flying off and clattering against the wall. Maria clung to her arm, heels slipping as they dragged each other upward. Others sprinted for the front door, pounding at the knob, but it refused to turn as though jammed. The killer turned his head slowly, mask expressionless, axe dripping. For a moment, Jessie swore he looked straight into the camcorder lens on the floor. As if he knew he was being watched. Then he stepped forward. Jessie and Aaron ducked into the dark hallway, slamming a bedroom door shut behind them. Jessie shoved the dresser against it, arms shaking with adrenaline. Aaron pressed a finger to her lips. The warped music blared, warped and shrill. Screams echoed through the house, kids crashing into furniture, shattering glass. And beneath it all, boots thudded across the floorboards. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Closer. Closer. The handle rattled. Jessie froze, pulse hammering in her ears. Then, silence. Erin's hand found hers, fingers trembling, squeezing hard. Jessie held her breath. The music screeched. And in the space between notes, Jessie swore she heard something else. A low, steady breath. On the other side of the door. The hallway door handle rattled once more, then fell still. Jessie didn't breathe. Erin's grip tightened on her hand. Both of them crouched low behind the dresser, mascara streaking down Erin's cheek, where tears had mixed with sweat. Silence pressed on them, heavy and unnatural. Only the warped synth screaming from the living room filled the air, tinny, distorted, as though the tape itself wanted to break. Then, footsteps. Boots pounding, retreating, fading back into the chaos. Jessie let out the breath she'd been holding, chest heaving. "He's gone," she whispered. Erin shook her head, voice sharp. "No, he's just hunting." Jessie pressed her palms to her ears, but it didn't block out the phantom sound of boots pacing across her nerves. Upstairs. Lila shoved Maria into the first bedroom they found, slamming the door behind them so hard the frame cracked. Her glittered dress snagged on the knob, ripping a seam up her thigh, but she didn't stop. She shoved her back to the door, panting, her tiara slipping sideways in her matted hair. Maria stood by the window, clutching the curtains, staring out at the black lake. Her breath fogged the glass. "Why here? Why now?" she muttered, voice trembling. Lila whipped around, eyes wide. "Shut up. Just shut up. He's not after us." "You saw what he did to Tommy." Maria's voice cracked into a sob. "Jessie saw too. He's not stopping." Lila snapped, voice like broken glass. "Tommy was drunk and stupid. He swung first. That's why." Maria shook her head violently, tears streaking down her face. "That's not why. You don't get it, Lila. We're trapped." Lila stumbled toward her, grabbing her by the shoulders, shaking her hard enough that her tiara fell off. "Listen to me," she hissed, then faltered. Because Maria's wide eyes weren't on her. They were on the closet. The wooden slats rattled once, then went still. Living room. Brett stood at the center like a general in the ruins of a battlefield. His white tux shirt was splattered crimson, his bow tie long gone, his face pale but trying desperately to look composed. Around him, half a dozen kids clung to each other, crying, begging him to do something. "Barricade the doors," Brett barked, forcing steadiness into his tone. "Tables, chairs, anything heavy. We hold out until morning." One boy, still in his cummerbund, shook his head violently. "Morning? That's ours? We'll never—" Brett cut him off, shoving him toward the table. "Do it!" Hands scrambled, chairs screeched against wood, a table toppled and smashed glass cups into glittering shards. The stereo still screamed its warped tape, drowning their panic in distorted synth. Brett snapped. He strode forward, ripped the cord from the wall and hurled it aside. The music cut off. The silence that followed wasn't relief. It was worse. They could hear the house breathing. The balloons brushing the ceiling, the sobbing in the corner. The faint creak of footsteps above. And then, glass shattered from the kitchen. A scream cut short, high and sudden. Someone bolted toward the back hallway. Someone else collapsed, shrieking prayers. The barricade broke apart as panicked hands pulled it the wrong way, kids clawing for escape. By the time Brett turned back, only the camcorder remained on the floor. Its red light blinked steadily, lens pointed upward at the ceiling. Recording the silence. Hallway. Jessie pushed the dresser aside, just enough to peek through the crack at the bottom of the door. Shadows shifted in the hall. Her heart thudded so hard she thought it would give her away. "Jessie," Aaron hissed. "What are you doing?" "We can't stay here. He'll come back," Jessie whispered. "Then where?" Jessie thought of the lake. The dock. The endless black water waiting beyond the glass doors. Her stomach twisted. No answer came. Then the boots were back. Slow, heavy, deliberate. The handle turned. Once. Twice. The wood groaned as pressure leaned on it. Jessie pressed herself against Aaron, eyes locked on the door. The sound of breathing seeped through the crack. Low, rhythmic. And then, tapping. Metal against wood. Tap, tap, tap. Like the flat of the axe, teasing the door. Jessie clamped her hand over her mouth, fighting back a sob. The tapping stopped. Boots shifted. Retreated. For now. Upstairs. Again. Maria backed away from the closet. "Something's in there," she whispered. Lila's chest rose and fell fast. "It's nothing. Old house, mice." The slats rattled again, louder this time. Maria screamed. The door flew open. A girl, not Maria, not Lila, tumbled out, bound at the wrists with a torn streamer, tape over her mouth. Her eyes bulged, wild with terror. One of the juniors. Blood streaked her dress. And carved into her arm in dripping red, "Prom night." The scream from upstairs split the house in two. Jessie froze mid-step, Aaron's nails digging into her arm so deep they left crescent moons. A second scream followed, shorter, higher, then silence. The silence was unbearable. Jessie whispered, "We have to move." Aaron's mascara-streaked face shook side to side. "If we open that door, he'll be waiting." As if in answer, boots thudded down the stairs. Slow, heavy, patient. The sound filled the hallway, each step creaking like a countdown. Jessie shoved the dresser aside with a screech. "Then we run before he's here." Aaron hesitated only a heartbeat before stumbling after her. Upstairs. The bound girl writhed on the carpet, wrists raw and bleeding where streamer ropes bit into skin. Her muffled cries came in jagged bursts, eyes wild and shining. Maria clawed at the duct tape over her mouth, her own hands slick with blood. "Hold still," she begged. "Please, just hold still." Lila pressed flat against the wall, her sequined dress torn, glitter sticking to sweat. Her tiara hung crooked in her tangled hair. "We can't help her," she hissed. "We have to hide. He's coming." Maria whipped around, eyes streaming. "I'm not leaving her. I'm not." The hallway light buzzed, dimmed, then flared. Boots drew closer. Maria ripped the tape free in a desperate yank. The girl gasped for air, throat raw. He's... The door frame exploded inward. The axe split wood, drywall, and wallpaper in a spray of debris. Lila shrieked as Maria threw herself across the bound girl, shielding her. The killer's mask loomed pale in the doorway, axe gleaming red under the flicker. The second swing came down with unstoppable weight. Blood sprayed across the floral wallpaper, streaking over roses until they looked like wounds. The bound girl's scream ended in a wet gasp. Maria sobbed, shaking her head violently, whispering prayers that caught in her throat. The killer stepped forward, shadow filling the room, each movement deliberate, savoring the terror before the silence. "Living room!" Brett's voice cracked from shouting. "Barricade the doors, tables, stack the damn tables!" Two boys shoved furniture against the front entrance, sweat dripping into their eyes. A girl crouched near the fireplace, rocking with her hands over her ears, lipstick smeared across her chin. The stereo shrieked warped synth, the tape skipping and screeching in endless loops. One boy snapped, panic breaking him. He bolted for the window, grabbing a chair and hurling it with everything he had. Glass shattered outward in a spray of shards. Brett spun. "Don't." Too late. The figure stepped from the kitchen shadows, mask pale as moonlight, axe glistening dark. The boy had one leg over the sill when the blade swung. It bit deep into his thigh. Bone cracked. Blood sprayed hot across the curtains, and the Prom Night 1986 banner taped to the wall. The boy collapsed screaming, clawing at the carpet as blood pooled beneath him. The living room detonated. A girl tripped, crashing into the toppled punch bowl. Red liquid splashed up her dress, indistinguishable from blood. Another boy vaulted the couch, knocking balloons into the ceiling as he shrieked. Brett snatched a broken chair leg, wielding it like a spear. He jabbed once, twice, catching the killer in the ribs. The mask tilted. No reaction. The axe swung, splintering Brett's weapon into fragments. Brett staggered back, hands trembling, realizing brute force wouldn't stop him. The killer advanced slowly, savoring the chaos. Side room. 2 more kids had hidden in a coat closet, their muffled whispers clinging to the dark. Shh. If we stay here, he won't find us. A sliver of light cut across their faces as the closet door cracked open. The mask filled the gap. The axe slid in after. Their screams were short. Hallway. Jesse dragged Aaron barefoot down the narrow corridor. Splinters, glass, and spilled beer tore at their souls, but neither slowed. The house echoed with carnage. The upstairs shrieks, the pounding furniture, the warped tape screeching in bursts. Jesse glanced back. The figure stood at the end of the hallway, mask pale, axe dripping. He didn't move fast. He didn't have to. Jesse shoved Aaron toward the back door. Move! Aaron fumbled at the lock, sobbing. It's stuck! It's stuck! Jesse grabbed a lamp, smashing the glass in a shower of shards. They tumbled onto the deck, barefoot and bleeding. The cold night air slapped them. The dock stretched ahead, the lake black and endless. Jesse pulled Aaron close, their breaths sharp and ragged. The boots started again. Slow, steady. Every step echoing through the house. Then the stereo cut out. The silence rolled heavy over the lake, pressing into Jesse's chest. She realized the most terrifying truth of the night. He wasn't rushing. He was savoring it. And he wasn't going to stop. The lake house burned with screams. Jesse dragged Aaron across the deck, glass crunching under their bare feet, the cold night air biting like knives. The black water rippled, swallowing moonlight. Behind them, the house convulsed in chaos, furniture toppling, wood splintering, voices rising only to be cut short in wet silence. Aaron stumbled, clutching her side. Jesse, I can't. Jesse grabbed her harder. You can. Her own lungs felt like fire, but stopping wasn't an option. Not now. The boots followed. Measured. Certain. Each step echoed through the house until it felt like the sound was inside Jesse's chest. Inside the house, Brett fought. He swung broken wood, fists, whatever he could grab. The killer didn't flinch. The axe cut through furniture, through kids, through air itself, each swing carving another memory into the house. By the stereo, the camcorder lay on its side, red light blinking, capturing every desperate scream. Brett lunged, driving his shoulder into the killer. The mask turned, blank, unbothered. The axe came down. Brett fell, blood soaking the prom sash still knotted at his waist. The camcorder caught it all. On the dock. Jesse and Aaron reached the edge. The lake stretched endless, black as oil. The dock boards groaned under their weight. We can swim, Jesse said, chest heaving. Aaron shook her head violently. I can't swim. Jesse gripped her shoulders. Then we stay quiet. We wait. We find a way. The boots reached the deck. The figure stood framed in the broken doorway, mask glowing pale in the moonlight, axe dripping steady. He didn't rush. He walked. Each step groaned across the boards, closer, closer, until Jessie felt the vibration in her knees. Aaron broke. She screamed, stumbling backward toward the end of the dock. Stay away, stay away. The figure tilted his head like studying prey. Then he lunged. The axe swung. Erin's scream cut short. Blood sprayed across the lake as her body toppled into the black water. The ripples swallowed her. Jessie froze, the spray hot on her face. The killer turned the mask toward her. And she knew she was the last. The boots started again. Jessie stumbled back, heart hammering, until her heels hit the edge of the dock. Water lapped cold against her ankles. The figure raised the axe. Jessie's hand closed around a rusted fishing gaff leaning against the piling. Her breath caught. The dock creaked under his weight. He stepped closer. Jessie screamed and drove the gaff forward with everything she had. The point sank into the killer's shoulder. He staggered, not crying out but shifting, mask tilting in something almost like surprise. Jessie ripped it free, swung again, striking sparks off the axe handle. For the first time, he stepped back. Jessie's breath came ragged, her arms shaking. She stood bleeding, barefoot, silhouetted against the black water, weapon trembling in her hands. The killer tilted his head again. Not in pain, in acknowledgement. Then he stepped forward once more. And Jessie realized the dance wasn't over. It had only just begun. The dock was silent except for Jessie's ragged breathing. The figure loomed only feet away, axe dripping steady into the water, the gaff's point buried deep in his shoulder. For a long moment, neither moved. The lake lapped black and endless at Jessie's back. The pale mask tilted toward her, unreadable. Then, headlights. Blinding beams swept across the tree line as a car crunched onto the gravel drive. Doors slammed. Voices called out. Parents, chaperones. Late but here. The killer's head snapped toward the light. Jessie blinked against the glare, breath coming in broken gasps. Help! She screamed, her voice tearing her throat raw. Help me. Boots shifted on the dock. And then, he was gone. Not into the water. Not across the boards. Gone as if the mask itself had melted into the shadows. Jessie collapsed to her knees, blood dripping from her arms, her dress torn and soaked. The gaff clattered beside her. Hands pulled her up. Voices swarmed her. Oh my God, what happened? Where are the others? Someone call the police. Jessie couldn't answer. The screams still echoed in her ears. The axe still hung above her in memory. Erin's blood still burned hot on her skin. Dawn. Police swarmed the house by morning. Flashbulbs lit the broken glass, the overturned furniture, the blood smeared across the floors. Officers carried out bodies wrapped in white sheets, one after another. Names Jessie knew. Faces she'd seen just hours before, now gone. She sat wrapped in a blanket on the back of an ambulance, staring at the lake. Her ears rang, her hands still shook. An officer knelt in front of her. You're safe now, he said gently. Jessie turned her head slowly, eyes wide. Her voice cracked. No, he's still out there. Later. Inside the ruined house, crime scene tape fluttered in the morning breeze. The camcorder still lay where it had fallen, red light blinking until the tape whirred to an end. The last frame it captured. The dock. The pale mask. And the slow tilt of the killer's head, not in defeat, but in promise.